We're going to start off with Israel. Number one, Israel has, once again, as it always does, in the event of a ceasefire, the opposition to Israel ceases its fire, and Israel continues to fire. Israel has engaged in. Remember, Israel is still occupying 53, or I think it's like 58%. Some people say 58, some people say 52%. But Israel is still occupying half of Gaza. Okay? Israel is still occupying half of Gaza. Israel still has Gaza hermetically sealed. The Rafah border crossing is not open yet. Israel still controls the Rafah border crossing and all of the border crossings, which is precisely the reason why they're not allowing aid to go in right now. Now, as we've talked about, there are some conditions on the ceasefire deal that Hamas and Israel engaged in, where Hamas basically said, look, we are going to give you all of the hostages that are alive, and also we are going to give you some of the captives that had been slain. But the problem is we can't give you all the captives that have been slain because we have to go and find them. And it's going to be a little difficult, especially considering that there are still tens of thousands of Palestinians who are assumed to be dead that people have not been able to extract from the rubble yet. So obviously it's a little difficult for anyone and everyone inside of Gaza to figure out exactly where all of the people are, right? And as I said, there were two things that Israel was going to use in the second phase of the ceasefire, the so-called ceasefire, to basically sully the deal. And Israel is using both of those things. One was the subject of disarmament. Okay, like what does that mean? How would that work? Who is going to do it? And it's very clear that Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Hamas both kept saying, we will disarm to a sovereign unit that is comprised of Palestinians that will be controlling Palestine and controlling the destiny of Palestine. We're not going to just like give up our arms amidst a fucking genocide. It's understandable for people to not want to do that. And it's very clear that this is the most consequential aspect of this conversation. And that's precisely the reason why. That is precisely the reason why this is going to be a point of contention that Israel uses to sully the deal. It's very difficult to find exactly where some of these bodies are. And I don't think you need to be, I don't think it takes a genius to understand exactly why that would be difficult, considering the state of Gaza. You have seen, especially places like northern Gaza, be reduced to fucking rubble. There are still tens of thousands of Palestinians who are under the rubble that have not been accounted for at this moment. So, in spite of that, Israel is obviously using this as an example, using this as a reason to spoil the deal, right? And here it is. New, an Israeli prisoner whose body was returned yesterday was killed by Israeli airstrikes. Forensic tests confirmed. Staff Sergeant Tamir Nimrati was abducted from his base alive and killed by IDF bombs while in captivity, the Israeli Hostage Families Forum said in a statement in Hebrew. So, like, as I've said before, this is going to be a very difficult situation for Israel because, like, on the one hand, I obviously don't trust Israel's own forensic reporting on a lot of this stuff at all because they have every opportunity to lie. But also on the other hand, the hostage families will 100% demand additional autopsies to exactly find out how their relatives died. So they are probably going to do everything in their power to get secondary and maybe even third looks on autopsies to ensure that they know exactly how their relatives were killed. Okay? So for that reason, I think we'll find out that there are a lot of Israeli captives that were most likely killed by Israel in the process. Why wouldn't they go along with the state? Because I think depending on what their attitude is, like there are some people who obviously are first and foremost beholden to the interests of the state. I'm sure there are. There's hogs everywhere. There's hogs in Israel. There's hogs who might say, you know what, the government narrative on this is totally valid. I'm fine with it. But there are still going to be people who say, I don't give a fuck about the government narrative. I want to know exactly what happened. And we've seen this with hostage families already. There have been some hostages that were potentially gassed inside of tunnels, for example. This was a major point of contention early on because once that hostage was extracted, the family members actually suspected that Israel was responsible for the death of the hostage because the hostage the captive was inside of a fucking tunnel, and Israel had potentially gassed the tunnel. This was revealed through additional autopsies that the families actually pushed for. So it's something that you need to. It's something that hostage families have very clearly demanded. Just like Nimrod Cohen's parent, for example, Nimrod Cohen, whose father has been like a major voice in, and not an anti-Zionist, but like a major voice in the anti-war initiative, who have said over and over again that like his son should not be used in this way, and that like there needs to be an end to this war. Like, yes, his name is Nimrod Cohen. Okay, calm down. But his father has been a very big voice. His father has been a pretty loud voice in the anti-war advocacy. Definitely on the anti-war side, not more like maybe not an anti-Zionist, but definitely on the definitely on the let's stop this genocide side. Okay. So there are, as is the case with every unit, as is the case with every group, there are going to be a lot of people demonstrating a diversity of opinion on the matter. But ultimately, I think a lot of families will want to know what the truth is. The truth matters more than anything else for a lot of families. And that's precisely the reason why, like I said, you'll see stuff like this coming out, regardless of what the Israeli government's interest is in propagandizing, how these captives were treated and whatnot. So anyway, where were we? So Israel is, like I said, claiming that Hamas is not holding on their end of the bargain. There's also a little bit of chaos taking place in Gaza in the reconstruction efforts that are taking place as well. Millions of Palestinians are moving around the Strip. They're moving back into the areas that they are from, where they used to have their homes. I say used to have their homes because their homes have been reduced to rubble, as we've seen already. There's obviously like a rebuilding effort that's taking place as well. And in the process, because there were a lot of different factions within Gaza, some of which that actually worked alongside Israel, for example, that did a lot of, contributed a lot to the chaos that was going on at the point of aid distribution, deliberately because Israel had armed these factions, armed these gangs. In that process, the interior security, which is, sometimes also known as Hamas or controlled by Hamas, is now trying to create an environment of stability. And in the process, they have executed in broad daylight, well, not, it's nighttime, but like they've executed some of the collaborators that have actually engaged in direct forms of violence. Now, the reason why this is important is because Israel obviously is using this to say these guys are brutal, they're barbaric, look at them, they're killing people. Now, it's actually really interesting to see Israel talk about like Palestinians being killed. It almost feels like they're saying only we get to kill Palestinians. How dare Hamas kill any Palestinians whatsoever, which I find to be very strange. But the other reason why they're using this chaos, or they're using the Hamas reassertion of control as an opportunity to say like Hamas is really fucking barbaric or whatever, is hold on. The talk about Salah the journalist. Yeah, I'm gonna give you all of that in a second. Here's the thing, okay? Throughout the 2 years of genocide, Israel didn't just like directly bomb Gaza, which they did obviously using 13 atomic bombs worth of munitions on this 2-mile strip of land, the Gaza Strip, that is hermetically sealed by Israel, that Israel is the belligerent occupier of, which is obviously not only a genocide, but it's all of the war crimes combined. But they also utilized internal political turmoil within different factions inside of Gaza, Palestinian tribes like the Dogmash tribe that has had like a long-standing beef with Hamas, for example. They've heightened the polarization, or 25-mile strip of land. Sorry. So as I was saying, they have utilized like internal conflict among clans in Gaza. They have also simultaneously used criminal elements within the strip that are like ISIS affiliates, like Yasser Abu Shabab,